Hello guys, and welcome back to KSP RP-1 episode 3, and we're starting off with a very quick intro. We're starting with the launch of the Supersonic Mark II. It's a slightly shorter version of the, well, quite considerably shorter than the Supersonic Mark I, this time being flown by Valentina. But yeah, it has, rather than one XLR-11 engine, it has two, so it has a much higher thrust-to-weight ratio. And also has a longer burn time because I put more fuel in the tanks. I basically designed it so I could have full tanks rather than the Supersonic 1, which was designed to have the tanks basically empty. Yeah, the good thing about it is, of course, the thrust-to-weight ratio. Stability on empty tanks is not the best because, as I said, I designed it with full tanks. So on once it's run out of fuel, it is quite unstable. So not the best, but oh well. So as you can see, we're just going up, already completing the contract by the looks of it. Just need to return home safely, but I decided, oh well, we'll just carry on up, go as high as we can. So the limit for the command, the cockpit on this is 30 kilometers before the Kerbals can't breathe. So we're just ending our burn there, out of fuel, basically on the edge of space. So yeah, I just wanted to get the 30,000 just so we can get that sweet money for that extra manned altitude record. Although, yes, Valentina starts to kind of choke to death because there's not enough oxygen, and this is not a fully pressurized cockpit. So because there's just enough lift on the vehicle that I managed to pull it down back into a safe altitude, and then we start tumbling. But luckily I managed to get it under control. As I said, very unstable on low fuel, so I've just got to be extremely careful when turning like that. I wouldn't usually do such a narrow turn. So, also, because the last time the air launch dropped us 1,000 kilometers away from the Kerbal Space Center, I wasn't able to come back in and land. But this time around, I set it to only 1 kilometer away. I fixed that in the settings, so we're just coming in for a nice night landing. Bit annoying that I did it at night, doesn't look as nice, but successful mission all the same. Most successful manned flight we've had so far. You can just see the lights, us just approaching the runway there. Very nicely lit for us, which is nice. Glad the ground crew aren't slacking or anything like that. So yeah, we're just coming in for landing. A bit fast, I do admit. I'm not the best pilot in Kerbal. This is like the first time I've tried to make planes in RSS. Didn't really work out last time when I did some test versions. But yeah, we got touchdown. We touched down on the tarmac, but we're not slowing down fast enough, so I'm just like, oh fuck it, let's just deploy the parachutes. There we are, and that brings us a little bit of an unexpected second flight, like in the first launch we had with the Supersonic Mark I. So swiftly moving on, going back to the Space Center right about now. Yes, okay. So just gonna buy us some more upgrade points for the R&D and for the VAB. We want to get that good old science quicker. We want to get all of that juicy research so we can start working on orbital rockets. But yeah, and now we're just rolling out another launch of the Discovery 2 Mark I, which we designed last episode. Basically a bigger sounding rocket for our space program. There we are, and we're on the pad. We'll have ignition any second now. Once I turn on the smart ass, of course, because I can't control this manually. I'll probably disintegrate it in the atmosphere. And just checking out the contracts. So this is just launch another biological sample mission. So we have to have a mystery goo. Sorry, biological sample science. Not called mystery goo anymore. That's not a real thing. Anyway, and then just some sounding rocket payload, and I need to launch that to space, and then recover it safely. So. We've got quite, especially on the second stage Aerobee engine, we have a lot of research done into that, so it's extremely reliable. Less so on the RD-100 on the first stage, but it still works. We haven't had a failure yet. We did have a loss of thrust on one, which failed the mission, but hopefully it won't happen again. We're also ironing out how the ascent profile of it goes. It's sort of like getting close to a 45-degree angle, because the thrust-to-weight ratio on this rocket is so high. With that first stage, I can definitely get away with a lot more fuel if I was to expand that. The only problem is possible problem with burn time. But yeah, so we're spinning up the motor at the second stage for separation, just because, having the separation motors themselves do the spinning seems to throw us off. Not having fins throws us off. If we don't spin at all, that throws us off. So the only option is spin stabilization, and that works perfectly. We're basically going completely straight, only a tiniest bit of wobble, which is lovely. And yeah, not going to be an altitude record or anything, because we're not exactly trying for anything like that. We're just going all the way up to space to finish this contract and get us some good old money for expanding our research and build capacity and stuff like that. So yeah, separate from the second stage, and we're just going to spin around for a while and listen to that glorious space music before coming back down again. So here we are re-entering. Once again, the shape of the quote-unquote capsule that we designed, also nose cone, but yeah, makes it quite stable coming through the atmosphere. No problems there. Pretty eventful, uneventful launch, thankfully. No failures at all. All went basically a textbook mission. One of the first textbook missions for our Discovery 2 Mark 1 sounding rocket. That's all good. So just deploying the parachutes there, and we'll swiftly move on to the next launch. So here I'm just showing off how you air launch. So there's you just prepare for air launch, then you set that, and then you just do that, and that's it. I'm going to launch Jeb this time. This is in the Supersonic Mark 3, because after that almost loss of control, I decided this thing's a bit not really stable enough. We'll design a new one. So basically all I did is I stretched out the tank, because the thrust to weight ratio can account for it. So the only thing I did was stretch out the tanks, and that was it. So we've got engine ignition, and this mission is just mainly testing out this, in particular, supersonic plane. Not going to try and go for any altitude records. We will go for a speed record though, because in the tests this thing got up to 1 kilometer per second speed. So if we can get to that, that would be lovely. However, yeah, I think this is Jeb's second mission, so good thing we're getting, we're spreading out the training between our crews. Obviously no more XP until we get to orbit, but it's still good to get them all at least experienced as far as flying test planes and stuff like that. So we're just going to head up and cut forwards about now. There we are. Now, we do have a slight problem in that we have a loss of thrust on the left XLR 11 here. First failure of the XLR. Kind of a shame. So I go just fast enough to complete the contract, and I decide, it's not worth it. This thing isn't exactly stable anymore. We'll cut it off, and we'll turn back around and head back to the Space Center. Just time warping around. But yeah, nice day launch this time rather than night launch. The night launch last time was an accident. I didn't intend to launch at night. I was just being too oblivious to notice that it was nighttime. Anyway, so we're just turning around, activating the engine again, just to get a little bit more speed to help us glide back to the Space Center. When this thing's low on fuel, because it's surprisingly light, it can glide very well, and it's fairly aerodynamic, so it barely loses any speed when it's gliding, which is nice. So we're just coming in. I decided, wait, we're going a bit too fast. After all, 150 meters per second, which was the last one, was also too fast. 200 is definitely too fast, so I just decided, let's do a little bit of a loop. Although I kind of kill off a bit too much speed. I'm being careful not to make it go into a flat spin. We almost go into flat spin. I'm like, okay, well, let's just deploy the parachutes and land that way. I'm not really feeling in the mood to lose Jebediah. That wouldn't be very good. Alright, no. I at least try to turn it around, but I decide, no, that's not going to work. Yeah, there we go. And then I deploy the parachutes in a second here. There we go. Well, the good thing about parachutes is I don't think they can fail, so that's good. So they're basically a guaranteed safety bed for our Kerbals. I opted that, given that we've got loss of thrust and it's not exactly a super stable vehicle, rather than doing a loop-the-loop and landing on the runway, we'll just land next to the runway. That's close enough. The ground crew are being paid to go and get the vehicle after all, so better to make them work for it. Alright, moving on to the next launch. So we're launching another Discovery to Mark 1. This time we have a contract to launch a film camera to the edge of space. So I decided, well, the second stage isn't really necessary in this mission, so I basically just took that away. I supplemented that by adding a tiny little bit of extra fuel to that stage, where the adapter would otherwise be. But yes, without the second stage, this thing has even more thrust to weight ratio, and it can just about send this film camera up to, I think, 140 kilometers if I do it at the right angle. We've also got to get a downrange distance of around 200 kilometers, which I was a bit worried that we won't be able to make that, but I just accounted for that by going on a flatter trajectory. But as you can see, we've already broken the sound barrier. This thing is insane on its own. The thrust behind that engine, behind the engine, is incredible. We could definitely chuck a bunch more fuel on there without having to worry about another engine, which is good for future reference. I am going to stick with this design for any suborbital stuff, just because I've tooled it so that it's now quicker to build than any other ones, and I have to pay for more tooling if I was to upgrade to a newer version, so might as well use this until we absolutely have to change. So we have engine cut out. I did a bit of a cock up here. I decided, oh well, we'll just jettison that because we don't need that. That was a bit of a mistake because I didn't anticipate the amount of drag that this film camera had. After all, it is a very unaerodynamic shape once it's on its own. So thankfully the atmosphere relents and we're just about able to meet the parameters to reach, to complete the contract. Now we just need to head downrange as far as possible. And that's not a problem. We managed to make the 200 kilometers downrange pretty easily. So we're just coming back in for a re-entry. Probably the slowest re-entry I've had so far, because this thing's so unaerodynamic, it just decelerates insanely well. So it took about a minute to actually land down. So, well, at least we know what sort of design to use if we want a orbital return in the future. Probably something like this with a heat shield, obviously, otherwise it's just gonna burn up, quite frankly. So yeah, parachute deployed, all good. Just heading down towards the actual parachute full deployment altitude right about now. There we go. Puts us down to 2 meters per second. Now that's all for this episode. Fairly short episode because I added some more mods. I couldn't help myself, I had to add some more mods. I'll go into detail on the next episode. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye bye!